Hello, today I'd like to talk to you about blunders and how to blunder proof your chess. The first thing I'm going to do is just to go through some blunders just so you can feel the pain of it and the importance of it. That's more for entertainment value. But then I'd like to talk to you about the things you can do to help blunder proof your game. So let's look at some blunders. There's a very simple one. Black to move here. That's the big black spot top right. Tells me it's black's move. And the move that black made was to get castles, move the bishop on f8 to c5, and there's attacking the queen. So it's developing, which it's supposed to do, with a threat, which it's supposed to do, and then white just played queen on d4, takes bishop on e4, and black just completely missed what white's threat was. Boo. So that was leaving something so it could be taken en prise, we say in chess. And here's another example. These are all from under 14 games from the Devon team. White picked up their bishop on f1 to develop and castle again, and plunked it on d3, which is usually an okay square, but in this position bishop to d3, and then the bishop on f5 took the bishop on d3 for nothing, because that square that's usually defended by the queen isn't defended by the queen. So it looked right but wasn't right. So that's a different sort of blunder. Here's a blunder putting a piece where it can be taken, which is the same as the last position, but this is a slightly more forgivable example. White moved the rook from g4 to h5, d4 to h4, and it was taken by the bishop, but we don't always expect to find a bishop on e1, and it's sometimes hard to spot moves that where pieces move backwards. We expect your opponent to come towards you, we expect to move towards the opponent. Backwards moves are sometimes hard to spot, so look twice for a piece that might. So look around the whole board, look for backwards moves. Very common if your king is trapped on the back rank and has no air hole, then this is a very common sort of blunder. So in this position, white's winning fairly easily. They're already a rook and a piece ahead, and can go another rook ahead by playing rook on f8 takes rook on a8, and which is what they did, and black replied queen on e3 to e1, check and checkmate. So much more interested in their own ideas than what black can do to them, but a back rank mate definitely worth looking out for. Discoveries, disco moves as I've put there, are very common sort of blunder, because they're you need to look for more than one thing at once. So here white has just played the king from f3 to f4, and may well have seen, may have seen that the knight on b6 can check him on d5, and perhaps they plan to go forward again. However, knight on b6 to d5 with check unmasks, it discovers an attack from the rook on d6 to the rook on a6, and so white just lost a whole rook there, already a piece behind. So right sort of idea as usual. Tartakova says some part of a mistake is always right, so king up for the ending, kufti we say, is the right sort of idea, but in this exact position, terrible mistake. So look out for your disco moves. And another sort of mistake, because the piece that you're moving looks safe enough. Here the black rook is being attacked by the knight. The black rook on e7 is being attacked by the knight on d5, and thinks, oh, I will avoid the attack, but I'll also take a pawn. So rook on e7 takes the pawn on e4, but what's holding up the rook and stopping the queen taking it is the knight on f6, and that can be taken. It can be taken with check. So rook takes e4, knight takes f6 check, and then the rook disappeared. Here's a situation that again happened in a game. Very sad to see. So black has just moved their bishop for a second time to pin the knight on on c3, and white defended against the pin by playing the bishop from c1 to d2. And now everything about that bishop move and the pin is right, and the thing that's wrong is it blocks the defence. It interferes, as we say, the defence of the knight on d4, which is being attacked once and defended once. So bishop to d2, knight takes d4. Similar sort of, so that's introducing a block, introducing an interference. And here's an absolutely terrible one. Poor old guy. And the white moved the knight from f3 to e5 to attack the black queen, and the black queen just came down to g2 and checkmated white. Now, a lot of people, this is why you need to check things at the beginning of a move and at the end of it. At the moment, black doesn't have any threats, and that knight move is safe for the knight, but it changes the position, and it allows black to do something after you move. So think about your opponent's threats before you move and after. So that was horrible. Another thing that was a point about this is once you've touched the knight, you're dead. So don't pick up a piece and put it on a square or wave it around holding on to it, because you might already be dead. Think before you move the piece to decide whether it's safe, because although the piece itself you might be able to find another square for, you may be opening up a threat, as in this case, that you can't defend against. So that's removing a block. Here's another sort of blunder. We've got various bits of tension in the middle there. Black knight can take our bishop, can take our knight, and there's a bit of black pieces are ganging up on our knight on f3. And so what white did about it was knight takes knight, which discovers an attack on the bishop, on the black bishop on h5. So knight takes knight, the bishop on h5 took the bishop on e2, queen took back, and then the queen on d5, black queen on t5 took the white knight on d4, and everything was equal, and so an ordinary sort of a swap. And neither player, I think, noticed too much about that, but after the knight hops out to take the knight on d4, bishop takes bishop, the knight can hop back from d4 to e2, and white would have won a piece. So I think just, white thought it was safe enough. It's an automatic move. The queen's being attacked by a bishop that you can take, so take the bishop, and didn't really think about the alternatives. So you do need to think about what other next moves are there. Think about all the moves that might be useful to you in your next position. And again, chess players tend to talk about candidate moves. It doesn't really matter what you call them. It matters that you think of them. And lastly, an in-between move. Here's the bishop's being attacked by the g pawn, and white took the pawn on g5, expecting takes on g5, black king takes on g5, white king takes on d4, the black knight on d4, and we it's a fairly even sort of an end game. But in fact, what happened was the bishop took bishop took the pawn on g5, and then black played a check on c2, which made the white king come away to d2, and then black took on g5, then white took on c2. And what had happened was that the white king had been sent a long way away from the action. So the capture wasn't forced, but white expected black to capture the bishop on g5, and black did, but there was an in-between move, and those are hard to spot sometimes. So I always have it's the same way you think about, well, what are all the moves that might be useful to me on the next move? What are all the moves that might be useful to my opponent? So in-between moves are hard to spot. And lastly, sometimes people complain to me, I lost because I blundered. And in this position, there was on the left-hand side there was a check to the white king. The white king moved to f3 and was mated by pawn from g5 to g4, checkmate. And I said, I lost because I blundered. Well, that really lose because you blundered in that position, because you're a rook down here, and blunders are easily blamed in a losing position. Like when you're badly off, lots of moves lose, but the real problem in this game happened much earlier on and may or may not have been a blunder. So that's a sort of a natural history of all the different species of blunder that I've noticed. So how do you get rid of them? Blunder proofing your chess. Blunder proofing stands on 4 legs, on 4 pillars. Firstly, timing. Don't rush. Secondly, looking. You've just got to look. You're not going to see anything if you don't look. Thirdly, seeing. What can you see? You need to practice seeing. And lastly, you need to be in good habits of thinking. So timing, looking, seeing and thinking. Let's have a look at these in more detail. Firstly, timing. Just don't rush. We know that when a grandmaster is galloping around in a simultaneous display, you can beat a grandmaster. Well, not all of us, but rushing can bring a grandmaster much down to our level. And so if you want to make the most of your chess ability, don't rush. And you should aim to use most of your time in most of your games. And if you're not doing that, play more slowly, think more carefully. Secondly, you've got to look. You've got to check for your opponent's threats. It's the first thing you look for and the last thing you look for. The first thing you look for is, what's my opponent up to? And last thing you look for, after you've moved, what can they do? And so just check your move for danger. One of the sorts of things that you can miss is on both occasions moves with more than one purpose. So what's my opponent up to? Oh, I see they're just moving a pawn to defend perhaps another pawn. But sometimes moves have more than one idea behind them, more than one move behind them. This is the problem with discovered attacks. So think about your opponent's threats, and you must look. If you don't look, you're not going to see stuff. It's hard to look and notice what you don't know about, and it's hard to see what you're not used to. So practice tactics, solve lots of tactics, and keep doing it. One of the things you find, you might be able to solve hard puzzles but miss simple ones. So doing lots and lots of simple tactics, even if you think they're easy, that's fine. Get your eye and get used to spotting things quickly. Do try and find puzzles other than white to move and win. I'll talk about that in a second. But that's useful. And also there are exercises you can do just to get used to looking around the board. I call that board sight, and somewhere in my collection of materials I put together a pack of cards where all the heart suit were different ideas about how to improve looking around a board, and I'll show you an example of that. So tactics, here's a tactics puzzle, white to play and win, and you might like to stop the video and have a little think about how to do that, but that's a fairly sort of common tactical puzzle. And maybe you found that easy, maybe you found it hard. But here's a quote from Dan Heisman, just to rub the point home, that well, I won't read out the whole thing, but a student that Dan Heisman had a few years ago, he suggested he start by studying basic tactics in John Bain's book Chess Tactics for Students, which he subsequently purchased. And at the next lesson he began by politely shoving his book across the table at me, saying, "You've got to be kidding, these problems are way too easy." And so Dan then looked at 2 recent games he had lost, and it turns out that both losses were primarily due to overlooking and then allowing their opponent to play a basic tactic. And after the second game, Dan says, I don't understand. You said these tactics for students was too easy for you, but are you saying that the two tactics that caused your losses in these games are more difficult than the tactics in the book? And the student said, see what you mean. And so my comment rather than Dan's, do challenge yourself with hard problems, get better, but you must be fluent, you must spot things quickly in a real game. Tactics in books can be easy to spot and blunders in games hard to avoid. 2 reasons, says Dan. In a problem, you know it's white to play and win, and you know that there's something to be found there, whereas nobody in a game taps you on the shoulder and says, you've got a tactic here, you can look. So you look in a different way when you're looking for a tactic than if you're just looking at a chess position. And secondly, that the pattern is not on the board yet, that the tactic that you miss appears only after you move. I think there are 2 other reasons. Basically players like thinking of their own ideas more than their opponents, and you see this time and time again. I know what to do because of what I want to do, but before then you must check. But also, lastly, and perhaps most importantly, there are often a long stretch of a game where tactics are not really present, and you get used to that and you forget to check, you forget to look, and I say you turn off your burglar alarm and then you get done. So do be careful. Oops. So that's doing tactics. Thinking about sight of the board, 2 exercises you can do. The one on the left is not white to play and win. It's how quickly and how accurately can you count how many attacks are there. That's to say, if you're white, how many white pieces are attacking black pieces, what captures are there for you, and how many black pieces are attacking white pieces, how many captures are there for black. So look quickly at position, what captures of black has white got, what captures has the opponent got, and also what checks. So one of the first moves that I think white should look at here, I don't think it's a good move, but the first move that you should notice is queen on e3 takes knight on g5. That's both a check and a capture, and that's very powerful, very forcing, and it might be the basis of a tactic. Secondly, looking across a whole board, there's an exercise you can do with pawns or queens. Try and put 8 pawns, 8 queens on a chessboard so that no queen is attacked and no queen is attacking another queen. And so you can see the queen on a7, not attacked by any other queen, not attacking any other queen, and so that's an okay square for a queen in this puzzle. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 queens on the board. Can I fit another one on? Well, if it's going to go anywhere, it's got to be on the G file. That's the only file available. And if it's going to go anywhere, it's got to go on the 6th rank. So the only place that I could possibly put another queen is on G6. However, G6 is being attacked by what? G6 is being attacked by the queen on B1, and that's the point of doing the exercise. It teaches you to look around the whole board and spot all the threats, and if you can do that and do that quickly, well, there are probably other exercises you can do. Apparently there are 12 solutions to that, although some of them are if you swap the board from left to right in a mirror, that's not really a different solution, but it might look like one. I think there are 92 solutions, 8 12s, if you count all the rotations and reflections and the rest of it, but basically there are 12 different ways of doing that. Okay, so that's looking around the board. That's not doing tactics, it's looking around the board and just noticing. Get better at that. Thinking of good, getting into good habits are just checking after you've made a move, and really check. This is an example of one of my games, although I'm happy to say it was one I won. So black's made a really weedy, straightforward sort of threat. Bishop to h3, threatening mate on g2. And this was a long while ago, and my opponent, it was in the days when you could write your move down before moving, and players used to do that as a way of checking, and it does kind of work. Not allowed to do it anymore, so they wrote their move down on their score sheet, and just quotes took one last look around the board to make sure it was safe. And the move they wrote down was bishop to f1, which defends the g pawn twice, and you know, may well be fine. And so that was the move that they made, and the move that I made in reply was knight to f3 check, forking king and queen. So they'd made a show of checking to make sure that the move was safe, and the bishop was safe, and the mate was safe, but there was something else that was made possible by their last move. That's just the sort of thing that we've just talked about. So a dangerous situation, check it, not just that your move is safe, but what can your opponent do other, and don't pretend to check, actually check. You've got to sort of look afresh, and Blumenfeld used to say, look through the eyes of a beginner. And so after bishop f1, imagine somebody who's not very good at chess came to the board. What's the first move that they play? What's the first move that they think of? Oh, got a big check, a knight fork, king and queen. Alright, and that's the sort of state of mind you've got to get yourself into. That's the lot. So hope you got something out of that, and see you next time.